Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier, and thank you for stopping by. I was looking through some old photographs and I came across this one from 194 days ago as we were coming in to descend into Nairobi, and we were at 35,000 feet and it was a sea of clouds, and it just made me think of white fluffy clouds, and that description in The Great Gatsby when Mia Farrow tells Gatsby that she just wants to put him on a cloud and push him around. I'd like to thank and sincerely wish Ian Donald of Nestle, EAR, Bon Voyage, and thanks for the friendship. Ian really is a very, very good friend and a very interesting man, point of fact, and gave me lots of insights into an area of business which I wouldn't have got otherwise. So I am grateful for the friendship, and yesterday we went for a farewell dinner and an introduction to the new CEO of the EAR division, Cornell, and look forward to continuing to work with them. I look forward to hosting Dennis McCory of Onfon Media at Mindspeak. That's this Saturday. Of course, it's at the Intercontinental. We serve breakfast from 9:30 and we start at 10 a.m. I went back to the Mindspeak with Christine Lagarde, and the link there is it's on the website. And yesterday she said, "I'm going back to work in Washington this afternoon." I, for one, am a great admirer of hers, and I think this is terribly political, the two camps in France, and she's very much on the Sarkozy side. And when we met her, Hannah and Aisha, in point of fact, on January the 6th at the Intercontinental, Hannah gave us some roses and she said many things, but the best was she asked Hannah, what do you want to be, who do you want to be like? And Hannah says, I want to be like you. And Christine Lagarde said, work hard and you can be anything you want to be. And indeed you can, and I believe that for sure. And when we were in Maputo for the Africa Rising conference, she comes into the reception area at the Serena, and it's very noisy and everyone is sort of chatting away, and she says, if I do not get your attention, I'm going to sing. And indeed she got everyone's attention straight after that. Looking forward to going back to Johannesburg. I had this fabulous trip where I got to drive all these wonderful Jaguars, and I'll put up a photograph of myself in one of them. We're going back down, so I'm very much looking forward to that. And on that note, I'll put up that photograph of the Jaguar in the jungle when we took it up to Lower. Another home thought goes back to Roland Barthes. Frontiers are physical as well as symbolic constructions. Political reflections. I'm going back to the piece I wrote over the weekend, and in that I said Eastern Ukraine has become a shadow zone. I like this photograph. It's Hacker, it's called. Photographer is Shabashny, Getty Images. It's pretty arresting. Counterpunch says it helps ISIS that the US, Britain and their Arab allies don't know how to retreat without humiliation from their 3-year attempt to bring down President Bashar al-Assad. I'll put up a photograph of President Assad and Mrs. Assad, and then I came across this sentence: if the US goal of keeping Syria a calamitous war zone remains intact, officials could decide that just bombing everybody is the simplest solution. And I think there's a kernel of truth in that. Ebola obviously remains front and centre. I did a take on the economy, and that link is on YouTube and on Rich Wrap-Ups if you care to have a look. And the point I was making is that viruses are very non-linear and exhibit exponential characteristics. I wasn't sure we'd hit that sort of exponential piece of the graph yet. Apparently, jokes are spreading awareness in West Africa when Liberia imposed a curfew last week The jokes quickly erupted on Facebook. Wives welcomed it, one said, because husbands can no longer stay out late drinking and watching soccer. The African Development Bank has spoken of huge damage to West African economies, slashing economic growth by up to 4%. And that's the point I was making, because the initial estimate was 1% of GDP growth, and I said I thought it would be considerably higher than that. Transport companies suspend services, cutting off the region. Governments and economists have warned that the worst outbreak of hemorrhagic Ebola fever on record could crush the fragile economic gains made in Sierra Leone and Liberia following a decade of civil war in the 1990s. Air France has suspended its flights to Sierra Leone following advice from the French government. Revenues are down, foreign exchange levels are down, markets are not functioning, airlines are not coming in, projects are being cancelled, business people have left. That is very, very damaging. Donald Kaberuka. The numbers I've had vary from 1% to 4% of GDP. That is a lot in a country with a GDP of $6 billion. Kaberuka described the healthcare systems of the affected countries as overloaded. He said he hoped the donation would stop money being diverted away from other programs such as education and agriculture. We need to begin now to plan what could happen next when Ebola is beaten. And I was writing about this previously, where I said, because of this non-linear aspect of Ebola, economic forecasting across vast swathes of sub-Saharan Africa now carries a very high component of beta. Going back to that fellow Abdelmajid Abdelbari, whose father apparently was fingered via a fingerprint next to a fax, for responsibility for the 1998 embassy bombings here in Kenya and Tanzania. And I wrote over the weekend there was a spookiness about the British accent. It's turning out that they're saying he's hip-hop artist Abdelmajid Abdelbari, otherwise known as El Jinni, lyricist Jinn, Jihadi John, Jinn being a play on the word Jinn, which I spoke about in the previous podcast. And then I went and found one of his songs. It's called The Beginning, and the link is there as well. And I'll put up a photograph of him. Incredible, isn't it, from hip-hop artist to sort of beheader. Currency markets: euro back above 132 at 132.12, dollar index softer 82.34, Japanese yen 103.74, Swissy 0.9134, pound firmer 165.97, Aussie back above 93 and how 93.59, India rupee 60.415, South Korean won 10.13.55, that's a fresh high, Brazilian real 224.69, Egyptian pound, where we've been for a very long time, 7.15.10, and the South African rand is firmed up 10.61.49. Dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart. We're in a short, shallow correction, I suspect. Euro dollar 132.12. Interest rate or yield on German 10-year bunds fell to a record low of 0.915%. The rate for 10-year debt fell to a record low. French 10-year debt fell to a record low 1.249%. This is undercutting the euro. This lower rate structure. Rate records are also broken for Italian and Spanish 10-year debt, and that's going to continue softening up the euro, I think. The first-class cabin of a Qatar Airways Limited Boeing 787 Dreamliner aircraft via Bloomberg. And the interesting point in this story was talking about how some airlines are no longer are foregoing first-class seats. But for Gulf carriers, the opulence of first may be as much about projecting an image of their home state as selling seats. They are almost branding a nation, said Nigel Good, a director at Priestman Good in London, which has designed plane interiors for clients including Lufthansa, Malaysia Airlines and Qatar Air. It's a gateway that helps visitors form an impression about the country before they land. Gold, 1285.76. I'll put up a 3-month chart. I think Ukraine and geopolitical worries has given it a bit of a lift. Crude oil I think is a trading buy at $93.58. It did close high yesterday at 93.88, which is the highest close since August 21. It's been on a losing run for a while now, but I think that's overdone. Headed for a second monthly loss. The Thai Premier tells foreign investors we are not dictators. Prayuth met representatives from the Thai European Business Association, a group representing 80 Thai and European investors, including automotive, aerospace, pharmaceutical, and logistics firms, telling them he was prepared to do everything to ensure Thailand remains a hub for foreign investors. I am prepared to do everything. Just show me your investment roadmap, he said. Prayuth, 60, who's also Thailand's army chief, said the country needs time to deal with its political transition. We are not dictators that just order whatever, Prayuth said during the meeting at the army's Bangkok headquarters, the first between the junta leader and foreign investors following his appointment as premier. In case you have heard distorted information that we have treated people badly, it is not true. Just look at my face. I am not a cruel person, he said. Mugabe may return to world stage as AU head. I think he certainly will. President Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe is in pole position to become the next leader of the 54-member African Union after securing the chairmanship of the SADC last week. Nothing bars him from simultaneously taking the helm of both whilst also running his troubled country. He remains, as this article says, a liberation hero in parts of Africa, particularly the South. He was not invited by President Obama to this month's inaugural US-Africa summit in Washington, however. He is the man to beat, says a senior AU official in Addis Ababa. In Harare, Zimbabwe, riot police detained more than a dozen opposition protesters and beat up others at a demonstration on Wednesday over high unemployment. Tsvangirai has been talking about taking it to the streets. I think this was probably a shot across his bows. I'll put up a photograph I found of Zimbabwean riot police patrolling outside Harare's magistrates' court on March 19, 2013. The sub-Saharan African telecom market is expected to grow the fastest in the next 5 years. Telecom service revenue in the SSA market will increase at a 6% CAGR during 2013-2018, mobile at 6.7% and fixed at 1%, taking the market size from 49 billion in 2013 to more than 65 billion in 2018. SSA market accounted for only 2.9% of worldwide telecoms revenue in 2013, increasing to 3.6% by 2018. Telecoms revenue in sub-Saharan Africa will continue to be heavily dominated by mobile services, which accounted for 86.5% of telecoms revenue in 2013. Mobile data revenue will grow far faster than mobile voice revenue, and they're pegging that at 19.6%. I think it's going to grow a bit faster than that. Increased penetration of smartphones in the sub-Saharan African region is underpinning handset data growth. Smartphone penetration will more than double from 12% of handsets in 2013 to 26% in 2018. I think they're too flat on that graph for smartphones. You can buy it for $65 now. South African all-share ticked 0.23% lower yesterday. It's up 11.574% this year. Interesting article about Cape buffaloes being sold for $6.3 million at the biggest auction yet. And apparently billionaire Johan Rupert, South Africa's richest person, led a group that bought a buffalo bull named Mystery for a record 40 million rand in September. Cyril Ramaphosa, the country's deputy president, made a failed bid of 19.5 million rand for a buffalo cow and calf in 2012. And breeding of wild animals in South Africa for hunting, ecotourism and meat production is growing 10% a year and had revenue of about 12 billion rand in 2013, according to Barclays Africa. Dollar rand, as I said, the rand is firmer at 1061.35. Egyptian pound around the 715 level. Egyptian stock market up 0.16% yesterday. It's up 38.2188% this year, multi-year highs. Second only to Dar es Salaam in Africa. Dar es Salaam's up 50%. The Nigerian all-share edged to 0.28% lower to close at 3-month lows, and it's minus 0.5% this year. The Ghana Stock Exchange is closed at 7-month lows. It remains plus 2.6541% this year. Over $30 billion is to be committed in Mozambique to produce 20 million tons annually of LNG, with the ports of Pemba and Palma to be redeveloped in the massive program of redevelopment. And it is, and I wrote about it previously when I said Mozambique is the next Qatar, and I'll put up a photograph of Pemba, which they're talking about being a big hub, that I took from the sky 89 days ago when we were returning from that IMF conference. British Gas, BG Group, has produced higher than expected flows of gas from a test well off the coast of Tanzania, boosting the financial viability of its planned liquefied natural gas export terminal in the East African country. Test flows at BG's Mzia 3 well off the southern part of Tanzania's coast produced better than expected results, reaching a maximum rate of 101 million cubic feet per day, nearly double the flow rate measured at Mzia 2 last year. On that note, I'll put up some photographs I came across. One is of camel thorn trees in Namibia. This photograph is by Alami. The next one is Lake Retba in Senegal. The pink tint is due to the presence of algae called Daniela Salina. This photograph is by SPL Barcroft Media. And then I like this photograph of baobab trees. So surreal, they turned the world upside down. I was born in Mombasa. There are many baobab trees, and they had sort of very ancient. The story there is that God was upset and he turned it upside down, so it looks as if the roots are facing the sky, as you can see from that photograph that I'm going to put up. At times there were lots of stories, and M.G. Vasanji, actually, when I interviewed him, has a story of a baobab tree and spirits that used to hang around about it somewhere, I think in Dar es Salaam. The IMF says Zambia's plan to slow spending pace will support economy. Zambia's plan to slow its increase in spending next year as the government tries to contain the budget deficit will probably help stabilize the economy, according to the IMF. Africa's second biggest copper producer is seeking to raise budget expenditure by about 7% in 2015. This is below the more than 30% rise in public spending planned for this year. Let's see how they get on. Coming to Kenya, I&M reported first half profit after tax accelerated 9.6743%. They increased the loan book to customers by 21.561%. Total assets increased 17.743%. Took a bigger impairment charge, lifted that 131.644%. First half profit after tax up 9.1543%. I think it's a fairly priced share. Kakuzi reported first half profit after tax down 36.56%. Sales, however, increased 4.34%. First half profit before tax fell 32.456%. First half profit after tax down 36.56%. If you look at the balance sheet, however, there is 2.77 billion shillings on that balance sheet. That's worth 140 shillings a share, nearly the entire share price. Furthermore, the price of, obviously we've had a tough time for these agricultural companies, but the net asset value of these companies, just the real estate value, is a multiple of the share price. T price structure was weak in this reporting period, however, and the known retained earnings, as I said, now equate to 141 shillings a share. And the NAV is also a multiple of the share price. The Kenya shilling improved a little bit to 88.345. I wrote about it, called it the Teflon shilling, after my friend Cedric Mohammed characterized it as such, and I kindly asked him if I could borrow the term. So I think it might confound expectations. Everyone had got incredibly bearish. Nairobi All Shares has set a record closing high every day this week. It's up 15.126% this year, but eked out a 0.1% gain yesterday. NSE 20, however, rallied 0.56%, and that's up 2.963% this year, and has closed above 5,000 every single session since August 5. If you want to follow the market in real time, you can do it for free. Just register on rich.co.ke, get a password, and go to Rich Live. You can leave it in the background if you want. You can see exactly the structure, demand, supply, last price, etc., etc. It's quite helpful, I think. Once again, hope to see you on Saturday for Dennis McCory's Mindspeak. Interesting chap, very young. It's a little bit of a Gladwellian story. Sort of university out of town at Egerton, spent his weekends on the computer, built an IT business. Good to hear it. Good to hear it. Look forward to it tomorrow on Saturday. Breakfast 9:30, start at 10.